and gentlemen, welcome to Power Hour presented by Circle B Diecast, the Halloween special. For our audio listeners who aren't watching the YouTube broadcast, Brennan has himself a decked out, ever so spooky backdrop. Brennan Poole, it's great to see you. My name is Erik. I'm your host this week. But Brennan, tell me a little bit about how spooky you're feeling this week.
Man, it's Halloween. It's right around the corner. It's like it's one of the most fun times of the year. Yeah, my house is getting fully decked out. We get a lot of trick-or-treaters here. So I'm gonna have to sit on the porch and hand candy out to all the neighborhood kids and watch their parents go up and down the street with like 9 million 10-year-olds. You know what I mean?
You're a porch sitter. You sit out there in like a lawn chair and
dude, my neighborhood is crazy. So we have to, or we would just have to be at the door and wait for the next group and then open the door and give them candy. It's crazy. My neighborhood is off the chain, but it makes it so much fun because everyone decorates. Like my neighborhood, like it has a bunch of trees and like every tree has a ghost on it. So like you're driving in, it's just like ghosts. Like
that's cool.
It's really, really fun. So yeah, and of course I've got the alien. I've got the mummy who obviously went to Victory Lane. You can't see those listening not watching on YouTube. But he's got the Hoosier banner around his neck. I got some spiders in here. I got a dragon skull that's lighting up. So yeah, it's popping off. I'm excited. It's gonna be it's a fun time of year.
Yeah, and for those listening, the day this comes out, tonight, October 24th, is Groovy Hollow 3. It's the annual charity iRacing event that I and my friends at AE Engine and Podium Esports have been putting on. Brennan, you're racing tonight in the Power Hour paint scheme, so good luck.
Yeah, thanks. I gotta make the everyone on the Power Hour team, all the listeners, proud. Hopefully, we can not be in the back of the pack. We'll be up front and then there'll be no problems.
Avoid elimination. Yes, that's tonight. For those of you listening early, this is tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Broadcast goes live on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Erik Estep. Brennan, before we get into some racing topics, and then we have a special guest, Erik Jones, joining us a bit later. We have to thank our sponsor, Circle B Diecast. As always, if you've been listening to this show, you know that if you use code OOTG at circlebdiecast.com, you can get free shipping on any orders over $30. It's a great deal. The holidays are around the corner. If someone in your life, is a diecast collector, or maybe you just want to, a little to and from yourself on a Christmas present, head to circlebdiecast.com. Brennan, we always like to show off diecast. I must admit, I'm kind of living on the road right now, so I was only able to pack a handful of diecast cars with me. I think I've shown every single one of them off on this show, so this might be a repeat, but it's fitting considering our special guest. I wanted to show off this Erik Jones 2022 Southern 500 race win. Love all the confetti on this thing. It's still on the little platform here.
It's so cool.
But it looks super clean, super official. Excited to talk to Erik a little later in the show. Brennan, do you have one that's maybe a little more Halloween themed to get us back on track?
Yeah. So like keeping in with the theme, this is one of my favorite schemes. This is David Gilliland's M&M's Halloween car. It even says Happy Halloween on the deck lid. Man, this is just such a good looking car, man. The orange Halloween nice. M&M's. Oh man, so cool. So yeah, throwing it back to old David Gilliland. But I think this is one of my top favorite Halloween schemes that there's ever been. M&M's always had really good ones, but this is my favorite.
Yeah, that one's like, they had some with Kyle Busch that were like sort of like orange and yellow. Then they had that zombie one a few years ago that was just gray. Like that one was terrible.
This was simple. It's got a pumpkin on it, orange M&M's, some black, some spooky. Happy Halloween. It's perfect.
It is perfect. Thank you again to Circle B Diecast for sponsoring Power Hour. Brennan, let's get powerful here. Let's talk a little NASCAR, specifically free agency. I know you're kind of still in the thick of things, but there are a lot of drivers, and especially the Xfinity and Truck Series, signing deals for next season. There's rumors flying left and right. Lately, there's a report out there that Chandler Smith has, we now know he has left Colleague Racing, but there's a report out there that he's joining Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series a year after he left Toyota. So that's a bit interesting. There's also a report out there that Sheldon Creed is leaving Richard Childress Racing and may go somewhere else to another super Xfinity Series team. Brennan, I guess first, I know you're in the middle of this. You race against these guys every
Hmm.
week, but the Chandler Smith leaving Toyota for a year only to come back to Toyota, supposedly, according to reports. Uh, what do you make of that? Like, how does that make sense? I guess.
Yeah, I think there just really wasn't a great place for him to go, or I think he felt like he could win races when the Gibbs seats really weren't open. So I think he chose to go take a chance, go to college, see what would come of it. I mean, he's done a good job there, obviously a race winner. So um I think if he ends up back in a Gibbs car, which we don't really know yet,
It's
but
not
if he
confirmed.
does,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it'd be a good. I mean, that was a good play. I mean, he stayed in a good car. He stayed competitive. He ran up front. He battled for a championship this year. He won races. What more do you want? I think that proves his ability. I think if he ends up in a Gibbs car, I think Gibbs puts a better race car on the track than Colleague does. I think that's just kind of been proven this year. Colleague's definitely struggled,
Yeah.
and he's really ran great over there. So I think, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I think Sheldon, when I try to break down the seats that are open for him, leaving RCR, and I'm trying to look at all where could he go?
It has to be
Um,
somewhere better, or at least as
yeah,
good as
yeah,
RCR.
and it doesn't make sense for him to jump to one of the colleague seats because like that's the same basically. So I don't. I really only see that Gibbs seat being that being a place where he could end up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with those Gibbs seats. But definitely, I mean, if either one of those guys ends up over there, I think I think for sure, I think Sheldon Creed would get a win if he goes over there for sure. I think the
He needs to.
Gibbs cars are that strong. Yeah, he's got to win, but I think he would if he was in that situation. And I think Chandler Smith would be even more of a threat every single week in that car, just like how John Hunter is. I mean, the Gibbs cars are so fast. I mean, just a great organization, and their Xfinity program has always been top notch. You can't go wrong going there. So for either one of them. So, but only time will tell, and we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens and see who ends up in those seats.
Yeah, and we're recording this, I guess, on Monday, the day before this comes out. So there's a chance that honestly, as fast as news is moving these days, by the time you're listening
Hmm.
or watching this, perhaps one or
You might
both of
know.
these drivers have confirmed their 2024 plans. Yeah, I mean, for Toyota, though, I guess when I first heard the rumors and then the report I saw from Sportsnot that says he's going back to Toyota, rejoining Gibbs, I was a little surprised, not for Chandler, because if a JGR seat is open, anyone would jump at it. But from JGR and Toyota's perspective, like, obviously they'd invested a lot in this kid for years. He drove late models, drove trucks for them, but he kind of left. Like he didn't really seemingly want to play ball, and take the offer y'all were giving him a year ago. And now he just wants to come back and be, in your top Xfinity Series car. I wondered if there would be any apprehension from Gibbs, only because they're not desperate for young talent right now. Like you look at their Cup Series lineup with John Hunter going to Cup, Ty Gibbs is already in Cup, Christopher Bell's winning in Cup. Their Cup Series roster with Bubba, Reddick, a lot of these guys are under the age of 30. They're young. Hamlin is an old guy, but he just signed an extension. So outside of Martin Truex Jr., who I guess could retire any year now, they really aren't desperate for anyone to immediately replace him. And Gibbs could always go out and sign another existing free agent. They don't always have to pick from their Xfinity or truck teams. I just look, they got young Corey Heim, who looks great in trucks. They got Jesse Love, who just, dominated in ARCA the last year for whatever that's worth. They've got these young drivers that in 2 or 3 years may be Cup Series ready. They don't need to go out and maybe overpay for a Chandler Smith unless maybe they were able to get a good deal for him. But it is interesting. I think, like you said, Chandler and JGR, if in fact they team up next year, they're going to win races. They'll be championship contenders. It will be good for both parties. Just from Toyota's perspective, I think the deal has to make sense. They're not desperate. I would look at like Ford's development system right now. They got Cole Custer, Riley Herbst just won a race, maybe looking a little bit better. But outside of that, Zane Smith just left for Trackhouse. So, I mean, what does Ford have? It feels like they're a bit more desperate, in my opinion.
I think what it ultimately comes down to, when we talk about it a lot, is just the sponsorship
Of
dollars and what
course.
that looks like. They Gibbs their Xfinity cars still need sponsorship money to run, and to run it the way that they run it, it's incredibly expensive. It's crazy how much
Yeah.
money they ask for. So I think that was probably a part of it. And who knows? You don't know what Chandler's situation was a year ago, to what Colleague was willing to take versus a Toyota or a Gibbs car or somewhere else. You don't know what that looked like. And maybe Colleague was also willing to put money in on the deal to get a talented driver to help continue to build their program. Obviously, didn't work, but because a Gibbs seat opened up and he's trying to go right back, which maybe that money situation has changed. I think Sheldon, it seems like they've talked about it a lot. His money situation seems pretty strong.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. And him, his family, everybody they raced, they want to be in the best possible stuff they can. That's kind of how he's been his whole career. He's been in the best equipment the whole time. So I think that makes total sense. Yeah, I think for Ford and some of those other manufacturers, they just don't have drivers in place right now that have the type of funding behind them that it takes to really develop them. So you got a guy like Cole Custer who's sitting there, and Riley Herbst. Those guys have the money behind them, and they're running very well. So if there's ever a seat that opens up, those guys could plug in and out of there. I think Riley probably still needs to show a little bit more consistency on the Xfinity side. Had a really difficult year. Obviously, the Stewart-Haas Xfinity cars have found something in the last 2 weeks. It's very evident, even like we know about it in the Xfinity garage. They found something and it's working. And they're, 6.5 tenths quicker than the field at the end of the race. I mean, it's just Riley Herbst almost won again at Homestead. So they got something going on. But yeah, I mean, it at the end of the day still comes down to the funding. But
Yeah.
what is interesting, Corey Heim, great driver in the Toyota pipeline. You got JH going to the 42. Truex, I see him only running another year. That's just me personally. Maybe JH moves from that Toyota into the main house at Gibbs after getting another full year of experience in the new Cup car and everything. If he has a good year,
I could see that.
and then maybe they plug a guy. Corey Heim's battling for wins every week. He wins a truck championship, whatever. Hocevar's just now left and gone Aspire with basically no Xfinity races. Very easily, Corey could just go straight into to the 42 car if Toyota wants him to do that, right? I mean, and Corey seems like he has money behind him too. So you never know. There's a lot of moving parts.
I don't mean to cut you off. You're touching on like 3 topics or several topics here that I'm like, I kind of want to dive into each one a little deeper. Like the trucks to Cup skipping Xfinity, like Zane, Carson are both about to do that. Maybe Heim could be like that seems to be becoming more common. I feel like we could talk about that, but I actually want to back up because since our last episode, Riley Herbst, I didn't have this in our notes, but Riley Herbst announced he's coming back to Stewart-Haas next year, immediately goes out and wins at Vegas by 15 seconds. So were you surprised at all that Riley and his group decided to stay with Stewart-Haas after missing the playoffs this year?
Yeah, 100%. Shocked, honestly, absolutely shocked. I mean, some of the things that happened, and it's racing, mistakes happen. It's part of it, but there were some mistakes that happened a part of, at that type of organization where that those things just don't happen. So I was a little shocked. I would have thought he would have probably been trying to get back in the Gibbs car with those seats open. I had heard that there might be some rumors there that he was, but that obviously didn't seem to be the case. And maybe they came out and announced it as early as they did to squash some of those rumors. But yeah, and then they went out and won a race. So I'm sure him and his family are happy with where they're at. And yeah, my old engineer, Davin Restivo, is a crew chief on the 98. So I was happy for him. But at the end of the day, I was still kind of floored that they won the race, to be honest. But like I said, I know they found something. And it's very evident, both the cars. I don't think the 00, probably had what they found on the 00 in Vegas. Definitely had it on the car at Homestead, because he was also probably going to win that race had he not run into the fence. So I mean, and then the 98 ran second. So there's like 2 weeks. I mean, Riley almost went back to back after like never being in the mix pretty much the whole year. So you know what I mean? Come on. But I think I think it's probably a good move to say. On Riley's part, we talk about it too, like where you got to have a path forward. And you just mentioned it. There's not a lot of Ford development guys. Riley's one of those guys. He's getting some Cup starts. He's on the right path. He just has to keep performing, and hopefully he can win some more races over there. And then, he might have a better opportunity to get in one of the Cup cars. The 10 car in Cup is always discussed. I don't even think they know what they're doing yet at this point already. I personally think Eric's just going to be back in it again for another year, but you see all the crazy stuff. People were saying like all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know. It will be funny when they just say that Eric's back in it, you know?
Before we get off silly season, have you done any schmoozing of the Smithfield in the past few weeks since we last talked? You know, if anything's possible for that 10 car, you know.
I mean, yeah, I mean, no, I don't, I haven't like, you know, I've had some people approach me about some other cars, in the highest series. But I think still at the end of the day, it comes down to some sponsorship. You don't have to have all of it. Like if the team believes in you and you got something to bring to the table, a lot of times I think
Sure.
in Cup, you can get, you can get the seats if the team really wants you to be there. It's not all entirely about the money, but um, so you never know. I think for me, I kind of know what I'm doing next year already. So excited about that. And hopefully I can continue to just, fight my way back into I'd like to get into one of those top team cars again and go race for race wins on a regular basis and fight for a championship, So we'll see. Everyone's path's different and doors open and change constantly. So you never know. But what I will touch on, because we were talking about the trucks and going straight to Cup, I've driven all three cars now. The trucks are way closer to the Cup car than the Xfinity car is. The Xfinity car doesn't drive like it's not even close. Like it almost messes me up going from the Cup car to the Xfinity car or the Xfinity car back to the Cup car. They're that drastically different. It's not even like
Interesting.
it's not even on the same level. So you drive the cars wildly different. And the truck is closer. So I think maybe that's some of it. But what I will say, which some of these guys will learn, like a Zane Smith and even Carson, he has run some Xfinity races. The length of the races, the Xfinity races are a lot closer to the length of a Cup race on a regular, like more often than not. They're 300 miles, or you have Cup races that are 400. They're a lot closer. Those length that of the race, like how long the race is, just drastically changes how you run the race compared to the trucks. So while the car is more similar and we're seeing guys jump out of the truck and have a lot of speed, the race is like twice as long. And there's I feel like there's some, and I've seen some mistakes from some of those guys. I think from just not having run races that long before. So there will be an adjustment in there. Well, they will have to learn how to handle that much more of a distance in the race.
Yeah, you forget. I think it's easy watching at home on TV. Fans don't realize or forget how physical NASCAR racing is. Like I was standing next to Dale Earnhardt Jr. after the Xfinity race this weekend. Obviously, he doesn't race every week, and I think wasn't he just sick for like a week or so? So he's not in maybe the best his peak physical form, but he was exhausted, and even admitted that if he was a little more fit, he might have gotten a few more positions there at the end of that race. So no, that's a great point you bring up. Cars and trucks are similar, but the race distances, that's something these young guys will have to learn. But again, like I said, you touched on a few different things. I want to move on to the Martin Truex Jr. thing. You mentioned Truex, and I want to kind of anchor that and turn it into a bigger conversation about the playoffs, because between now and probably our next episode, the playoffs will probably be over. The championship will more than likely be decided. As of now, Homestead Miami just wrapped up. We've got 2 Cup drivers locked into the championship 4, and we've got a few heavy hitters facing potential elimination going into Martinsville. Let's start with Truex real quick, because he was the regular season champ and you brought him up. He blew an engine this weekend, it appears, towards the end. I guess we don't know exactly what failed. Did not finish the race. He's 17 points out. You kind of joked about it, Brendan, but do you honestly think maybe Martin is sort of regretting signing that extension? Because it seems like the moment he announced he was coming back, it's just been a disaster. These playoffs have been he has one top 10 finish, and that one should have been a top 5. They blew a chance at points there. But other than that, it's been a train wreck, these playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if regretting it is the right word to say, but then again, he says things like what he says on the radio this past weekend that many of us have heard, and it was tweeted that he was just like over it. And in the heat of the battle, you do say things all sometimes that you don't necessarily mean. But I mean, I don't know. I think I do think he's getting down to the end of it. I would be surprised if next year wasn't his last year, but you never know. I mean, there's been guys that have, you see it and you think this is it, and they carry on for another couple. But But I think next year will probably be Martin's last go round. So we'll see. And yeah, he's got a hell of a fight coming up here in Martinsville. He's run pretty good there though.
It's
The
a good
last
track for him. He's a good short
it's a good
track
track
racer.
for him. So I'm not too worried about it. I think what's interesting to me from this past weekend is, the other Gibbs car, the Christopher Bell winning. I watched and I was just like, he's not any really in the mix.
No,
And
for like the
then,
first 2/3 or 3/4 of this race, he was
nowhere
10th
to be
at
found.
best. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden wins the
Yeah.
race. I'm just like, I
He
just,
he made that
that was
three
a,
wide move on that restart, and I audibly said to whoever was next to me, I said, when did he get into, like, how did he get here? Where did he, like, it was the classic Kevin Harvick. Where did he come from? But like, I
yeah,
genuinely meant it. Where did he come from? How does he
yeah.
keep doing this? This is 3 times in the past year that he has won a playoff race when he had to. Like,
hmm
that's difficult.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that impressed me for sure. I probably at times haven't always been the biggest Christopher Bell fan, but I think this weekend was very impressive. And
Mhm.
who knows, maybe he can do it in Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean,
I
he's
don't know, man.
yeah, that's the thing. I guess he's been clutch everywhere. He didn't win last year's championship at Phoenix, so now he gets a second chance at it. Maybe bat 500. That'd
Mhm.
still be pretty great.
When there's only four guys that are racing for it and it comes down to one race, like literally it could be any of those four. Like it just, I
Yeah,
mean, you got a 25% chance of winning it. I mean, it can go either,
exactly,
it go anyone's way. You
exactly.
see wrecks happen, you see cars break, you see people just go to another level when it
Those
comes to
Phoenix
it and win a
restarts
race.
are nuts. I mean, we saw
They're
last year just
crazy.
after a restart. I think it was Chastain and Elliott got together, a couple championship four
Hmm
guys. So things can happen quick. I want to ask as well about Kyle Larson, who's another driver locked into the championship for. The narrative around Larson this year in particular, but really his whole career, is he's checkers or wreckers. Like, really fast. Very few drivers have the same raw speed and ability that Kyle Larson seems to have, but he also has a knack for, or is prone to, overdriving, making mistakes. Sometimes it doesn't cost him. Like a week ago at Las Vegas, remember, he almost wiped out, tagged the outside wall, saved it, and went on to win the race, but was this close to crashing out. This weekend at Homestead, was it entirely on him? Maybe, maybe not. Coming onto pit road, maybe overshot it a bit. Maybe Blaney entered a little slow. Either way, Kyle Larson into the sand barrels, finishes last. Doesn't really affect him since he's already locked into the championship four, but it's something to keep your eye on, not only going into the championship race at Phoenix, but even just going forward into Larson's career. Because I mean, is he 30 years old yet? Like, he's been
I
around a
think so.
while. He's been in the Cup Series 8 or 9 years. Hasn't always been in the top equipment, but as many of impressive wins as he has these past few years, he's got almost as many sort of just head scratching, crashes or mistakes. I mean, I think he's
Yeah.
either first or second this year in the Cup Series in DNFs, and not all of them are his fault. Like Darlington earlier this year, Chastain ran him into the wall, and they both wrecked racing for the win. Like, it's not always his fault, but he is in the middle of a lot of these incidents despite being so fast. I don't know. What do you have a take on Larson
Well, I have a
going to the
take on this
championship?
weekend for sure. I mean,
Okay.
I think it was just dumb. I mean, he's running the 12 down. He's all over him. You're coming to do a green flag stop. You've caught him drastically in these last few laps, and you're on him. Like you're basically coming to pit road together.
Hmm.
I don't think you need to do what he was trying to do in that exact moment. I think that's a mistake. Obviously, it was took him out of the race. And I just sometimes he does some things that to me are just not necessary. Yeah, probably the fastest driver on the track in raw speed. Doesn't matter. He's so quick. But you're right. He there are times where some of the aggression is just way too much. I mean, he's lucky he won that race in Vegas and didn't lose it in wreck because he'd have to be going to Martinsville to win, which is probably one of his worst tracks. If probably the only track he's not good at. So, I just some of those things are just they're just not necessary. I mean, you gotta be able to think and make the right decisions. And in that moment, from the outside looking in, that was a big mistake. I think everybody anywhere watching it would agree that that was a huge mistake and not necessary to push it that close. I know, Eric, you and I were talking earlier, and you're talking about, well, the 12 did catch him and was like better than him on the longer run. So maybe he was trying to push it as close as he could to maybe get in front of him in the pit stop. But
Maybe.
at the end of the day, he ran into the tire barrier. He took himself out of the
Yeah.
race. He lost a chance at winning a race, and he tore up a car. So, and he almost took the 12 out also. So, I mean, I just don't. I think that hopefully he continues to learn and grow from those things. We see him do some incredible, amazing things that are just like unbelievable, and then you see that and you're driving into the pit wall barrier. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know his way, but kudos to him for never changing. You know that saying, what do they say? He never changed like that. He's doing
yeah.
the same thing. He
There's
just
some
gets in the
saying in
car and
there.
drives the crap out of it. And he's just full tilt the whole time. But I think, there's a balance to that. You have to learn when to hone it in, pull it
Yeah,
back.
because we've seen both extreme results of the way he drives just in the past couple of years. So in 2021, he had a great car, obviously, but he was aggressive, won 10 races in the championship. So it worked for him that year. But then last year, 2022, if you remember, in the round of 12, he made a mistake at the Roval, hit the outside wall, bent the toe link, and got eliminated. So,
Mhm.
we've seen the best and the worst from Larson being aggressive. I will say this, Larson is probably the most entertaining driver to watch in Cup right now. I think there's a reason a lot of fans have gravitated towards him. He's obviously really talented, and I think he also kind of lets things go pretty quickly. I think that's something that fans kind of appreciate. Even this week, when he was at first sort of saying, Blaney maybe was a little slow, but he didn't dwell on that. He then admitted, I'll go look at the data. It looks bad. Maybe I was pushing too hard, what have you. Like, he even let that
Yeah.
go pretty fast. And I think Larson races aggressive, but more often than not, he races fair and is kind of willing to let things go. I think about the battle between him and Kyle Busch at Chicago in 2018 when, Larson failed a slide job. Busch paid him back. Afterwards, there were absolutely no hard feelings. Larson finished second,
Yeah.
did not care. Like, he was like totally like, that's racing. And I think a lot of fans do
Yeah.
resonate with that. So he's the
100%.
most entertaining, even though the results could absolutely be better considering his talent, I think.
Well, I think through all the stuff that he's been through over the year, he's been able to really show his real character especially in his interviews. Like, he's so honest, and I appreciate that from him too. Like you said, even just like, hey, I have to look at the data, but maybe I just got in there way too hot and ran into the fence. I made a mistake. Like, I think that I like that. Right. I'm just saying, on my side of things, it's just like, hey, man, maybe just tone it down like 1%. I'm not talking 5% or 10% or
Do
whatever.
you
I'm like, just like, you're in second place, you're all over them. Don't take yourself out of it entirely on just like, for what that didn't. I think he probably would have been able to win the race.
he would have absolutely been
Yeah.
had a great shot. Well, on that, I do just kind of want to ask you, and every person, every driver is different, but if we ask Larson to dial it back 1%, how easy is that to do? And where I'm getting at with this is, like, Ross Chastain, everyone was begging up for him to dial it back 1%. And ever since he supposedly did that, he's been a non-factor. And
Well, I
the
think
cars aren't as good. I don't think that's the
I don't
reason.
think I don't think
But
Ross Chastain has dialed it back 1% at all. I think he's the same. I think, and what
okay.
I mean by dial it back 1%, I mean, just like in those crucial moments, you've got to know that sending it up 220% into the pit road at Homestead on old tires where it's slick, it's like one of the most difficult pit roads to get to. Maybe just do a 219%.
I guess
It's going
that's
to be
fair.
fine.
That's
I
fair.
mean, that's what I mean. I don't mean like all out take 1% away from them everywhere. Absolutely not. Full send on restarts, full send on everything. I just mean in a crucial, pivotal moment of the race where it means everything, you just got to be perfect, especially in Cup. You can't have that type of mistake. And I'm sure he's going to look at the data. He's going to talk about it. He's going to go over it. His team had a little meeting. I don't know if you saw the picture.
I did,
all outside the hall. Like, they're going to be fine. But, he's, you just got to learn those things. And I'm sure they're going to be talking about it and breaking it down and discussing it. And it probably won't ever happen again because he is that good. It probably won't ever happen again. But you have to know, like, that when's the time to go, when's not time to go, when's the time to send it 228% into the tire barriers, and when is it not? That I
Well,
think it's, you know what I mean?
yeah. Well, I agree. I think he is that good, but I disagree. I do think it will happen again.
Okay.
He might not go into the tire barriers
Tire
again,
barriers.
but he'll do something. There will be the next year. There will be something Larson does where we go, ooh, didn't maybe need to be pushing that hard. But he's also gonna do
Yeah.
three things that make me go, wow, holy crap, he's that good. So,
Exactly. Well, you can't
um,
fault him for sending it either. So I don't want people
no, yeah,
listening to think that I'm saying that. It's just like, you have to be perfect.
he's
He
gonna,
over
yeah,
he oversent it and wrecked. It is what it is.
yeah.
But I'm sure he'll fix that. It may not happen at Homestead again, but maybe it'll, like you said, there'll be more excitement and
There'll be
spark somewhere
something.
else.
There'll be something for sure. But that's why he is again the most entertaining driver in Cup these days.
Yeah.
I believe. But yeah, Championship 4 will be set this weekend at Martinsville. I guess next time we do this show, Brennan, we'll know our Truck Xfinity and Cup champions. I'd ask you for like your picks, but like I still have research to do. I don't want to like marry myself
Dude,
to one pick too early without having done the proper before I even know who's going to be in the championship for. So I think we're not going to make picks unless you're like really passionate about. Are you like William Byron ride or die or something? Like how are we feeling?
I'm not. I mean, I think statistically, I think you should pick William Byron. Just because of the
Mm,
year that he's had, I think it's probably been by far his best year. Not necessarily meaning that that's just going to all come together. Anything can happen when you only have four guys in one race to determine it all. But he has plus 30 over the cut line, so like he would have to literally finish last, I guess, or outside of the top 30
yeah, he'll
and
probably
then like
make it.
another winner. I think he's gonna
Yeah.
make it, if not win Martinsville, probably. So I don't know. I mean, Ryan Blaney and Truex, I mean, and Reddick, it's all possible. Denny's very good. I mean, you just never know, man. Someone could get in there that we're not even considering. But yeah, if I had to just pick right now, I'd say William Byron.
It's not
And
bad. He won at
Xfinity,
Phoenix. He won at Phoenix in the spring, so that's not a bad pick.
yeah, and Xfinity, like if JH makes it and he can just like not, he seems to make mistakes at Phoenix, but the Gibbs cars are so dominant at Phoenix
Yeah.
that like you would be crazy to not pick him. So
What
I would
about
have to say John Hunter.
I just want to mention him real quick. What about Sam Mayer? He was on our show a few episodes
Hmm.
ago,
Hmm.
and I agree with you. I don't think he's the favorite at Phoenix, but he's won like since he was on our show, he's won like 4 races, I think, or three of the four, or
Yeah,
something like that. Like, I mean, you've raced against him. We've obviously talked to him. Like, what have you seen in Sam Mayer this year? Like, because I think
it's
Sam and I would even say Riley Herbst coming into this year, there are a lot of questions. Like, do these guys really have it? Like, they haven't shown us
yeah.
much. Like,
Well, Sam Mayer's got it. I think what it is you getting that first one is always so difficult in
uh,
any series, anytime you move up. He got one, and then it was just like
they just
the
felt that, yeah.
confidence that okay, I can win here. Then he won another one, and then it was like, oh boy, now he's won an
Feeding
oval.
frenzy. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it's
sky's
just
limit.
like yeah, he's yeah. I mean, he's going to be difficult to beat. I mean, do
Yeah.
I think he's a favorite at Phoenix? No, I think the Joe
No,
Gibbs car will be by far the fast car when we go to Phoenix.
probably
Every
true.
time they go there, whether it was Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs,
Harrison
Daniel
Burton won a
Hemrick,
race there.
it doesn't matter who's it. They Phoenix is like a really good track for them. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say if Nemechek makes no mistakes, he's probably gonna dominate that race.
It's a fair
But
pick. What about trucks? Carson Hocevar winning his way into the championship 4. I guess that's the
yeah,
one series we actually know who the 4 will be. That one's set for sure.
yeah, that one is set, and it's kind of it could be any one of those. It could be any one of those guys. I tell you who I want to win is Grant Imfinger, GMS. Their truck program is over after this year. He's made it to the final four. He's been in the final four so many times.
Yeah.
He's so deserving of a championship, yet has not got one yet.
It's shocking he doesn't have
So
a championship. It really is.
it's shocking, yeah.
Yeah. You talk
So
about
I
like you look at these vets like Crafton with like 3, and you're like, where did like I forget Crafton has 3 championships in
yeah.
trucks, and then I look at Enfinger and he doesn't have any, and it's a little surprising. You're right.
Yeah, and I feel like Grant's had a harder go at it, right? Like he was working at GMS as an engineer. Like he got some chances. He won some races. Oh, he gets a little bit of sponsorship money. He runs at Thorsport. He does very well. He wins some races. He gets to the Final Four a couple of times. Like right, his journey. Then he had to run part-time one year, and now
Yeah,
he's back. And then he went back to like
it's an
his career's
underrated
been wild.
story for sure.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, and the amount of work that guy's put in, in my opinion, he's another guy that's fought and clawed and has earned his way to be there. And so I would really like for him to do it. I think I don't know. I don't see Corey Heim or Ben Rhodes getting it done this time. Ben Rhodes has got it done there before, so I'm not saying it's not possible, but I really feel like the ThorSport trucks haven't been really good all year. The fact that Ben even made it to the Final Four, I think they should, kudos to you guys. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to come down to Carson and Finger to me personally between one of those guys.
That will be a really interesting battle, a generational battle there. I mean, we had Carson on the show as well. It was a good weekend for guys who've been on Power Hour in the past. So maybe
Yeah.
this bodes well
They
for
come
Erik
on our
Jones.
show, they take off. Maybe Erik wins this
Yeah, there we
weekend. Who
go.
knows?
Yeah, no, but that'll be fun. You got 20-year-old Carson Hocevar up against, how old's Grant? He's like 40, maybe 42, 40, something
He's
like
got to
that.
be close. He's got to,
Something
yeah,
like
he's
that.
probably right around 40.
Something I love that about the truck series. I honestly do. I guess it's kind of happening to all
Yeah.
NASCAR series now. A lot of 20-year-olds racing against like Harvick, who's 47 or whatever. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. All right. I think it's about time we bring in Erik Jones, like we just mentioned. Maybe our little chat with him can bring him some luck these final few races. Maybe he nabs a win at Martinsville this weekend. That would be a shocker for sure.
Yeah.
Blow up the playoff. Well, wouldn't really affect the playoff grid, but it would interrupt the playoff picture a bit. Let's go though now to that Jones boy. We are now joined by Erik Jones. Erik Jones joins us here on Power Hour. Erik, it's great to see you. Thanks for being on.
You got it. Thanks for having me. Like you said, a long time no see, but glad to be on.
I know it was a busy, fun week at Homestead. You got top 15, right? Solid finish for the Legacy Motor Club guys, right?
It was good. Yeah, we ended up 14th there. I thought times we were a little bit better than that, but we fell behind a little bit early and had to kind of work back. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was a good day. Homestead was a place we last year really struggled at, so I was happy to just have some improvement. It's nice when you can go back and somewhere, especially you struggled at least you can kind of check that box. You got better, so hopefully, hopefully next year we can kind of improve on that even more.
Well, as you can see by Brennan's spooky background, this is sort of our Halloween themed episode. So we'll tie this back into racing a bit in a moment. But actually, Erik, I was walking around outside the fan zone area this weekend when you were at the Chevy stage. I happened to walk by and I caught you talking about a possible Halloween costume for this year. Did you say you're potentially going to dress up as Beetlejuice? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, that's what Holly wants me to do. I'm not, I'll be honest, I'm not huge into dressing up for Halloween, but Holly really likes dressing up for Halloween, so I go along with it. And I think she just likes to put me in something that I would think would be embarrassing to be out in public with. So yeah, dressing up as Beetlejuice would be, yeah, flashy for me. So I'll go with it. I'm good with Beetlejuice. I like the movie. She'd never even seen the movie until we got together and I showed her the movie. I don't know, probably 2 or 3 years ago now, but that she said it's one of her favorite movies. So I may go along with the Beetlejuice theme.
I get trapped into having to do crazy stuff for Halloween every year because Lindsay is like die hard Halloween. Like my house right now is out of control. We've been traveling for so long. So like literally all this morning, I got back from Miami last night. I've just been decorating because I'm behind. And then I put all this stuff in. There might be some themes in here on what I'm going to be for Halloween, of what we're going to be for
Ooh.
Halloween. We always try to do like the same thing. Like we were Post Malone one year. Right.
I did Post Malone?
Yeah, we were both Post Malone, face tattoos and everything. Although I did wake up the next day, I started freaking out and I was like, get this stuff off of me. Like I can't look at myself covered in tattoos anymore. But yeah, Halloween is always fun. But talking about costumes, Erik, like I know you just said you're not a costume guy, but like, can you remember like being a kid or anything that was like your favorite? Like, oh, that was so much fun. I dressed up as whatever. I was what, or did you just
Did,
like do
did
the classic race car driver and just go as yourself?
did you ever dress as another race car driver? Like, I'm not a race car driver, but I had a Jeff Gordon costume one year, and I was not even a Jeff Gordon fan, so I don't know how that happened.
I don't know if I actually did ever go as a race car driver. I remember as a kid though, I probably a lot of kids had these masks, but it was like a skeleton mask and it had a little hand pump and you could pump it and it
Oh,
looked like it had blood running through it.
dude,
And
those were
yeah,
awesome. Those flew off the shelves at Party City where I was from. Those are good.
so that was the one I remember that probably the most. I had to be in, I don't know, third grade or something, fourth grade maybe at the time. But yeah, that was like the heat for me.
You
You're
mentioned
into the
Beetlejuice.
scary stuff. He's
Yeah,
into the scary stuff.
he is. I was gonna say you mentioned Beetlejuice a minute ago. Like, but what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite Halloween or scary movie?
Oh, Halloween, the original Halloween. Yeah. I don't know. I just like the feel of it. I don't like the like a lot of the new stuff's pretty intensely gory, which I'm not
Yeah.
really super into. So that one, I don't know, it's just kind of a classic one that it doesn't, I guess it's not a good story, maybe kind of is a good story, but yeah, that's my favorite for sure.
And by horror movie standards, I haven't seen any of the Scream movies until last year. I watched the first Scream finally, and another classic. I was a big fan of that one. So, but I have a lot of catching up to do on scary movies. Um, Brennan and I were talking about our favorite Halloween candy a bit earlier. My tastes have changed, but we got to get your take. Like my tastes have changed, but not much. I always loved chocolate and caramel, but I move on from like Twix to Milky Ways to you know where. But who knows? But do you have a favorite Halloween candy, or what do you like give out at your door to kids who come like through the neighborhood?
Well, to be honest, I don't have many trick or treaters where I live. But if I did give out candy, I'm a chocolate peanut butter guy. Easy. Reese's are my favorite. I got some Reese's at the house right now. Reese's and Oreos. Yeah, I love the little
Ooh.
packs of Oreos too. Those are my big things, but definitely Reese's are number one by far.
Dude, I feel like I mean, I know we were teammates before Eric for a while, but like that would be my exact same answer. Like I love Reese's peanut butter cups, but also like Oreos too. Like by far,
Yeah.
they're the top two best things. Like people ask me all the time, they're like, "Well, don't you want to try this cookie or this dessert or whatever?" I'm like, "No, they already did it. They already made the best one. We don't need anything else. They
You,
did it, you know?
yeah, you can't improve on it. It's just already there.
Well,
It's done."
I went to a Fuddruckers for a burger the other day while I was in Miami. Actually, it was next to my hotel, and I decided I'm gonna splurge. I'm gonna get a milkshake, and I asked for the Oreo shake. But the guy behind the register actually looked at me and said, "You need to get the brownie shake." And I said, what are you talking about?" And he said, like, it's weird. I'm having this conversation a second time this weekend because he said Oreos are everywhere. You can get that anywhere, but not many places have a chocolate brownie shake. It was good. Oreo's still probably better, but it was good.
You shouldn't have
Um,
listened.
yeah, I know, but okay, we got to tie this back into racing. Appreciate you playing along with our Halloween hijinks, I guess, Eric. But let's talk a little racing. When I talked to you at the track at Miami a few days back, we really focused on sort of the future, where your career is at now, and with all the changes coming to Legacy Motor Club, where it could be in the next couple of years. I want to go back to the beginning. You grew up in Michigan. Where did you or when did you get your first start driving race cars?
Well, I guess competitively it was 45 minutes away from where I grew up down in Waterford, Michigan, racing quarter midgets. I was 7 years old. My mom actually kind of got me into it. She had read about quarter midget racing in a magazine of all things, and we went down there and yeah, just kind of picked it up right away. Started getting into it. We went kind of full steam ahead. We just went ahead, found a car, bought it, showed up, and went racing. So yeah, it was fun. I mean, I loved it right off the bat. I guess a couple of reasons. I loved cars when I was a kid, and was into that thing. I was a casual race fan. I watched our family would watch some NASCAR races. I wouldn't have considered us diehards by any stretch of the imagination, but we would have the races on. And yeah, once I started doing it, I just I loved the competition of it. Had some success early on. Felt like I was okay at it, which probably helped keep me going in it. And just really wanted to keep doing it right off the bat.
When did that like switch flip in you that this was something you could do professionally, like actually make a career out of? Because like I think a lot of folks remember the story how you beat Kyle Busch at Snowball Derby, right, and sort of got his attention and sort of you moved into trucks eventually and stuff. But like, when did you had at that point you already kind of decided that no, I want to pursue this. This is a legit dream of mine, full time. Let's go. Like, when did that moment hit you?
Yeah, I mean, by the time, yeah, for sure, I was racing against Kyle. It was what I wanted to do. I was 16 at that point. I was stretching to the end of my parents wanting to be involved and help them fund my racing career. They had kind of given me an ultimatum until I was about 17 or 18 that if you aren't doing it on your own by this point, you're out, man. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to do it by then, but I don't know. Thinking back earlier than that, I would say back to when I was 11 or 12. I mean, yeah, I wanted to do it then, probably even younger than that. But I would say once I hit, 11, 12, 13 years old, probably 13 for sure, I hopped into a late model at that point and was traveling around the Midwest a decent amount racing. And, I was taking it really serious by then. So that was definitely the point where I wanted to make it a career and wanted to figure out how to make it a career.
What drivers growing up, either maybe in the Midwest or even in NASCAR, did you sort of, I don't know, model yourself after, or were you like a fan of?
There was a lot, I mean, when I was a little kid, I was a Jeff Gordon fan. He was huge inspiration just to kind of get going in the path I kind of took in racing. As I got a little bit older and started looking at guys to who I wanted to, model who I raced after. Mark Martin was a big one. Obviously, in the Midwest, he was held in pretty high regard, especially in the late model world. Um, and then watching, short track guys that I got to grow up racing with too. I think back to, guys like Scott Hance, who I worked with for a little bit, who was a Midwest guy, racing around there, and some other, Brian Campbell, those guys. Those are the kind of guys who, in Michigan that I grew up racing with and had a chance to watch and learn from. So yeah, it's always fun to, think back to racing with those guys and who you ended up modeling yourself after. But definitely, from the NASCAR side, Jeff was the first guy that I looked at and wanted to figure out, how he kind of took his career path from quarter midgets up to NASCAR.
Good stuff. Brennan, I want to bring you in a little bit more here. I know you were telling me beforehand, and I think you mentioned it a second ago, that you and Erik, I guess, were teammates at one point in
Yeah.
ARCA. Tell me about that. What I didn't know this.
Yeah, we were teammates, I don't know, 2012, 13, 14, a few times when you're still running those races. And so we raced against each other a lot. And I felt like then we were a lot closer. Obviously, as you get older, you're racing more and you're doing your own thing and life gets in. But I felt like we were really good teammates. And actually, Erik and I were talking about this at Vegas a few weeks ago, because was spotting for Erik at Berlin, and him and I have won a race together. He won the race. I was spotting for him. And man, I remember that plain as day. That was like a really, really fun weekend. And Berlin was a place that I struggled at. So through that experience, Erik helped me. And I went back the next year at Berlin and ran the race and qualified up front and ran third. So I don't think there's probably any other drivers like at the highest form of motorsports that have like maybe spotted for one another and then like actually won a race together. Maybe, but I don't think so. I think it's just us, man.
Yeah, I don't really think so at all. It's funny thinking back to it. I don't even remember how that all exactly came together, like how you ended up spotting for me. But regardless, yeah, I was running a few races that year. I think I was only running, maybe 4 or 5 ARCA races that year. And, I wanted to go to Berlin, home track for me. And that was a place I'd raced at a ton and won some late model races there. But, I wanted to win an ARCA race there, like growing up. And, some of the guys I was just talking about, short track guys there, that went and like running the ARCA race there was a big deal, right, as a kid. So, it was cool for me to hop in, get to do the ARC race there, then obviously winning it was kind of the cherry on top. But yeah, that was cool. It was funny. I think back to it, I can remember bits and pieces. It was a pretty like straightforward, easy race from what I remember. I don't think there was a whole lot happening for us.
No, it was pretty smooth sailing. I think we just like talked about managing tires a little bit when you were out front, and we just managed tires and it wasn't a problem. Pretty much dominated the thing. And then we celebrated real hard afterwards, and it was a lot of fun. I remember it. It was a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, wait, this was like 2012. How old were you, Eric?
Yeah,
How hard were we celebrating here in 2012?
No, we were way too young. Our celebrating hard was like, screaming loud, taking pictures with the trophy, and like throwing water all over Erik and Gatorade and other things like that. But no, we were kids.
That's pretty
Yeah,
hardcore.
I was gonna say.
I don't,
yeah, that's what I remember.
That's great. I went to Berlin Raceway for the first time to see the SRX this summer. I don't know if you got to watch that, Erik. That's a cool track, though. I'd heard great things. Really awesome racetrack. Brennan, did you have any final questions for Erik? I can't remember now off the top of my head. I know I covered what I was looking for.
Can you I was going to talk to you about this a little bit, like explain, like you still doing a lot of stuff with the books and reading to kids and all that kind of stuff. Like, could you talk about like your passion, like maybe for how that got started, and then like maybe what's your favorite book?
Yeah, that trends back pretty far, really. So I guess 2016 or 17-ish. It was right around when I was, about to go cup racing. Um, I wanted to find a way to connect reading with what I was doing with fans, and so there wasn't really a good way. I was like, man, I don't know a way. I love to read, but I don't know how I'm ever gonna connect this with the fans, and so I never had a good way to do it. And then COVID came around, and we're like, wow, now we really have to find a way to stay, somewhat connected with everybody with this going down. So I don't remember who exactly suggested it or how it came about, but we all, internally came up with the idea to do the readings on what was Facebook Live first. I'm like, yeah, that's a cool idea. We'll see how it goes. And if it goes good, I'll keep doing it. And, we fired off, and people were fans, and we're like, all right, yeah, I'll keep it going. I think it's cool to, if I can get, a couple parents come up to me and saying that their kids were interested in reading a book because I got on there and read it, I think that's awesome. So it's, it's obviously grown a lot. We've had the foundation come along a couple of years ago with myself, and obviously reading's been a huge part of that. But yeah, just a big reader myself, and I've always stayed, interested in reading and learning, and depending, different subjects. I guess I stick mainly to historical books and probably some biographies and autobiographies are my biggest things. As far as a favorite book, I always struggle with that. I can't ever pick one favorite book. There's been a lot that, I've really enjoyed reading over the years. And, obviously anytime you can read racing, for me, racing books are the most interesting for me to kind of dive in and learn the processes of those guys and how they go about things. So I don't know that I can pick one, but I stick to a lot of biographies and mainly within the sports world. So yeah, I still read a ton when I can, and obviously we do a lot of flying through the year. It's always a good time to kind of crack out a few chapters in there.
That's awesome. Well, that's super cool. And I think that's a good one to kind of end this on. But Erik, we really appreciate you being on the show, being part of Power Hour. We'll have to talk to you again sometime soon. Good luck the rest of this season, I guess, and have a great off season. We're looking forward to next year.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Huge thank you again to Erik Jones for being on the show. We hope you guys enjoyed that as much as we did. Also, a big thank you to Circle B Diecast, circlebdiecast.com. Again, you can use special promo code OOTG at checkout to get free shipping on any orders over $30. A lot of great stuff, a lot of new diecast, even some pre-orders, and so much more available there at Circle B Diecast. So definitely go show them some love. Go support them. Great partners of the show. Brennan, I think it's about that time of the show where we talk directly to our loyal viewers and listeners and answer some of their questions.
Fan questions, baby.
All
Yeah, we
right.
had some good ones too this week. Thank you guys for all the questions. Keep it up. They're fun to go through. So thanks.
Yeah, tweet at either me or Brennan, or on the YouTube version of this show, leave a comment. That's where we typically pick from. This week we've got three pretty good ones. Let's start with kind kind of an off the beaten path one here from Rec Bite. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, but they ask, what is your favorite chip brand or flavor?
Yeah, so God, it's so hard to pick, right? Because there's so many chips out there.
A
But
lot of chips.
honestly, I love chips too. But my favorite chip is probably like a Hers classic, like salted chip. You can't beat
Nice.
it. But I'm
Yeah.
also like a huge salt and vinegar guy. Like
Ooh.
I love pretty much any salt and vinegar chip. But I really like the Pringles salt and vinegar, like, and
Mm.
because it comes in the tube too. I'm just like in my backpack, I'm on the plane,
It's
I'm on
very
whatever, it's
portable.
safe and not getting smushed. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And then you like the perfect chip. Big Pringle salt and vinegar guy. But hands down, like if I'm just like saying, oh, my favorite all-time chip, it's the Hers salt classic salted or not Hers. Utz. What am I saying?
Oh man, yeah, that's
Messing it
two
up.
two very different.
I totally just blew it. Why am I saying Hers? I'm
So
thinking
it's
old Arca sponsorships over here, and I'm not on Utz. Oh my
Utz.
gosh, I almost just totally blew it.
Good
Sorry,
catch.
Utz. You deserve so much more.
Yeah, keep the
Utz
salt and
chips.
vinegar going. Yeah.
Yeah, Utz chips and then salt and vinegar Pringles. What
All
about
right.
you?
I guess I'd go with a classic sour cream and onion Lay's chip. I used to.
That is a
My
classic.
dad always kept a lot of those around the house. There's always a family-sized bag in the pantry I could ruffle through anytime I needed.
They're so
All
good though.
they are good. They are good. Now they need to be paired up with specific foods. They aren't always the
Club
best.
sandwich,
Yeah, like any good sandwich
turkey
typically
sandwich.
they match. Yeah, any of that they match up with, but it sometimes has to be specific. Although I was at Trader Joe's recently, and this is not a chip per se, it's more like a Cheeto puff, corn puff thing. But they
Oh
had these
yeah.
like cheesy truffle parmesan Cheeto looking
What?
things. Yeah, I
What?
got a bag of those.
Parmesan.
They were pretty good. I've really gotten into like that like truffle.
uh
I'm in my truffle era the last
oh
few
yeah.
months. It's lasting longer than I thought it would. I don't know. It just
Big
does it
truffle
works for me.
guy.
Yeah,
I,
so
I I can go. I can dig with the Lay's barbecue too. That's like a classic chip too.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
I love barbecue. I'm not a big fan of barbecue flavored things. And like my girlfriend is, she'll get like barbecue chicken pizza. And I guess that's sort of in between. It's not really
Well, now we're
barbecue,
pushing
but
it. You lost
yeah.
me at the barbecue chicken. I was like, "Where's he going?" And then you said pizza, and I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah, I
no,
know. Like it's like it's
no."
real food at least. It's not just flavored, but it's not it's in between still. I need to commit to the barbecue if I'm gonna have barbecue flavored things. But that's a great question from Rec BHYT.
It's a fun question.
Yeah, it is a good one.
It was fun.
Let's get back to racing a bit more here. I know you hate when we do this. Alpha 24_9 asked, my question is, what is your earliest racing / NASCAR memory? Brendan, do you know this? We may have talked about this maybe in the
I don't.
beginning, but I don't
My
know.
my earliest like NASCAR memory for me is I went to the inaugural race at Texas Motor Speedway, and like Jeff Gordon crashed in the first lap, and I was so mad. I was so mad because I was like 7. I'm 7 years old. Jeff Gordon's my favorite. I'm like all excited. I'm like in my all my Jeff Gordon stuff, and like out lap 1, and I'm like, great. Now I'm gonna sit here, watch this race all day for Jeff Burton to win. I'm
The
like,
wrong
I'm
Jeff.
mad. I'm mad. You know,
That's
so
insane. I didn't know you were at the
I,
first Texas
I
Motor
was at
Speedway.
the very first one, and I sat in the parking lot for 4 hours because the traffic was brutal. But I was 7. I didn't care. I saw a race, but I also was just mad that Jeff Gordon went out. But I remember like everyone in the stands standing and like going like, oh, and like I couldn't see because I was 7.
You
And I'm
didn't
like,
want to
what's
see.
that? And I couldn't tell, but I could like just kind of see him at the top of the wall wrecking and then coming down and 1 and 2. So yeah, that was my first like NASCAR memory, but obviously my first racing memory is I can remember still to this day when my dad took me to watch the quarter midgets race, and I was 4 then, and I can literally remember watching the cars, and it was night and the lights, and my dad, and we were like standing at the fence, and him asking me if this is something I wanted to try, and I was like, yes, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, but I was 4, so and I remember that, and that's my first racing memory, and of course. I started racing competitively like very shortly after that.
Gosh, yeah,
So
I think it's crazy that we are both of our first races were Texas Motor Speedway, just very different years. Mine was 2005. I was also 7 years old though at the time, so very interesting how that works out.
Yeah.
My guy though started on pole and finished third in that race, so I had a little
So you
better
were
luck.
happy.
Yeah, I had a
You were a
little
happy
better luck my
camper.
first time around. Uh, no, my first NASCAR memory, or really racing memory at all, would have probably been playing NASCAR Thunder 2004. Around
On
that
your
same,
PlayStation?
yeah, my
You a PlayStation
PlayStation
guy?
2. Um,
Hmm.
I don't like I have memories of like seeing a few clips on TV. Didn't really know what I was watching. My family didn't really know racing, so they didn't know what they were watching either. I kind of remember that. It's a little hazy, but I just remember logging a ton of hours on NASCAR Thunder 2004. That's how I learned the drivers, the tracks. That's how I was able to, like, in a weird way, that's how I was able to connect that what was happening on TV and what was happening in my game. Like, it was a real thing. I was able to connect the two.
Yeah.
So I would say those early days, I was probably 6, 7 playing NASCAR Thunder. That really got me going back in the day. But that's a great question, Alpha 24_9. Our last fan question, Brennan, before we wrap up this very powerful hour of podcasting. Trademark. No, it's not trademarked, but don't steal it.
Yeah, please don't.
Gaming with Brian asked, "What's the best advice for young racers and young YouTubers?" I see. I don't like calling myself a YouTuber. I feel like there's like a negative
Yeah.
connotation with that word, but it depends on. I feel like if you're over the age of 30, it's a negative thing. If you're under the age of 30, it's like, oh, YouTuber, yeah, that's legit, that's cool, So it depends on who I'm talking to. But great question though,
Uh,
gaming with Brian. I'll let you start though, Brennan.
I, I think um my biggest advice is just like, and it sounds like so crazy, like cliche, I guess, to say, but it's just like you just can't ever give up. I mean, there have been many points in my racing career where I thought that it was over and I wasn't going to get an opportunity or I wasn't going to make it, whether that was from leaving racing dirt tracks in Texas, or how was I going to move up from racing late models in North and South Carolina and Virginia and Tennessee? Like, how am I going to, what's the next step? Or times where I didn't have sponsorship money and I wasn't, just straight up really wasn't running a car and didn't know when the next time I was going to run was going to be. Or when I ran a race, I thought it was the last race I was ever going to run. Right. I've lived through all of those things. But the one thing that I haven't done is quit. I've just kept digging and kept trying. I think the moment that you stop trying is the moment that that dream is over. So my biggest thing is just like, you just can't ever give up because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So just work as hard as you can for the day that you've got now, and know and believe and have faith that that door is going to open up on the other side, as long as you keep pushing through. And sometimes it's going to take some time. Sometimes for me, I've gone, almost a year without driving. It's just how challenging motorsports can be. But I've stuck it out, and I'm here. I am. I've had some great opportunities the last couple of years to stay in a car, and I'm still racing. And I've had opportunities to race on Sundays this year, which blows my mind. So all from just not quitting. So that would be my biggest thing, because it's so challenging, and there's going to be days where you're like, man, I could do something else. But for me, I didn't do that. And I love the sport so much. It's literally, it's in my heart. It's in my blood. It's all I want to do. I don't think about anything else. I don't hardly ever watch anything else. I think I'm driving Lindsay crazy because I'm just watching racing 24/7. And she's like, it's Halloween time. Can we just watch a scary movie? And I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. I let her watch something else, but but it's just you just have to, if it's something you're going after, you just can't ever give up, and know it's a roller coaster. It's ups and downs times, and just keep fighting through it. As for YouTuber, I can give some advice to this.
Yes,
I vlogged, I
you've had
did it.
you've had shows in the past. Yes.
It's I think it's another thing that you just have to really love. And it takes time, and the editing and the filming and the thinking of the shots and setting things up. Like, it's not easy. Like,
You
I
have to
think
be
people
able to
think,
do everything, or at least a little bit, especially at
yeah,
first. And that is a
yeah,
challenge.
teach yourself how to do some of the editing and some of the stuff, and do some research on thumbnails and tags, and like how you're going to put all that stuff in there. I mean, it's a challenge, and it takes some work. And then once you build a little bit of an audience, it's the same thing. You just can't ever give up. I stopped vlogging because it's way too much work to do, and drive a race car and, handle sponsors and go to
The
events
racing
and
thing was
travel.
work.
You can,
The racing thing is
yeah,
working pretty well for you. You kind of at some point have
yeah.
to pick one. It's hard to do
You-
both.
it is. It's hard to do both because they're both like, I mean, they're like full-time gigs. It's like it takes everything to shoot it. I mean, you live it, so
Yeah, no, and what you're saying is exactly right. Like as far as like practical or tactical advice, absolutely learn how to edit. I would say like study other YouTubers or videos that interest you. Like I didn't really do that consciously, but like I grew up. YouTube was created in 2005. Really started to be taken more seriously in the late 2000s into the early 2010s, and that's when I was old enough to be all over YouTube, watching everything, even things my parents probably didn't know I was watching on YouTube at the time. But whether I realized it or not, subconsciously, I think I was learning what made certain channels or YouTubers more successful than others. So, definitely study, try to maybe emulate folks that inspire you or that entertain you at first. Got to get a feel for it, learn how to edit. But beyond that, you know, again, you have to love it. Because especially early on, there's not a great return. You're not going to immediately find your audience. Most likely, it's going to take some time. And then from a financial standpoint, you don't get monetized on YouTube right away. You can't just flip it on and start making money like you're an Uber driver or something. And it's not that easy. It takes time. You have to meet certain standards. So the early days are going to feel like a grind if you're not really passionate about the content you're creating or whatever you're talking about. And then that's the big thing that I always tell people is find a topic, a subject, a genre, something that you are not only passionate about, but also like uniquely qualified to talk about. Like what's your angle? Is this something you're an expert in? Like I'm not an expert in racing per se, but it's something I feel like I know a lot more about than most people my age. And my angle was always, I don't live in North Carolina, out of the groove. I'm outside the typical racing sphere more times than not. I was making these videos in my college dorm room in Austin, Texas. And I think I found an audience of people similar to me in age and also background who didn't grow up, surrounded by racers or from a racing family. And maybe they were able to relate to some of my opinions or the way I viewed the sport. And that's sort of where I think my channel kind of took off, or that was the base that I was able to build. So that's why I always tell people starting out, be passionate about what you're talking about, but also find something you're uniquely qualified to talk about. Nobody's going to want to hear me talk about, I don't know why Olympic
Cooking?
diving just jumped into my head, and I think
Oh,
I'm thinking
yeah.
about your movie role, I suppose.
Acting.
Yeah,
You
acting. Yeah,
act though. You are though.
not really, but don't come to
YouTubers
me
like
for acting
pretend
lessons.
acting.
Yeah,
You're a fake actor.
I'm not in a union or anything.
Uh,
There are a lot of things that nobody would want to hear me talk about, but racing, followed it my whole life, follow it very closely to this day. So I think I'm uniquely qualified to talk about it. So that's what I would always encourage up and coming or, aspiring YouTubers to pursue. It's hard to be Mr. Beast or, whoever who can just make a video about anything and have it be successful. That's very hard, very rare. Typically you need to find a genre or a style or a subject that you kind of focus on, at least at first. But great questions. That I think I felt good about that. I feel I think we're changing lives out here, Brennan. Never give up. Find your passion. This is powerful.
We just speak the truth, man. That's
Wow.
all there is to it. We're being open and honest, and that's what it's about,
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys asked some good questions. Hopefully that advice helps. Keep asking us some more questions in the comments of the YouTube video or tweet Eric and myself, and we'll try to get to all of them eventually. We just keep having to pump up more shows, Eric. We're just gonna have to
Absolutely.
we got to be
Keep it
men of the
going.
people
Mm-hmm.
and bring them what they want, and that's answering questions,
Absolutely. Well,
talking about the latest news.
speaking of truth be told, Brennan, I think we've gone over an hour on this one, but that's
Yes,
okay.
you know what I love to say. You know what I love to
Yeah.
say. Power hour in 17 minutes this week, y'all. See how close I am when this comes out.
Something like that. I don't know if we went that far over. We'll see.
Oh, okay.
You know Eric. You know how Eric Jones can be. He's a chatterbox. He likes to he'll
My
talk and
man,
talk
him
your
talking
ear off.
about his book readings.
Yeah,
And
what is he doing? Doesn't he know this is a
golly.
racing show? What is he? No, that's Good stuff. Thank you everyone for listening / watching. Brennan, always great to catch up with you. I'm excited to hear about your 2024 plan. Sounds like those are coming together.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too.
Yeah. Have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your week, folks. We will catch you again next time on Power Hour.